Hello, welcome to Comic Tropes. I'm your host, Chris. Peach Momoko is very well known to most comic book readers at this point for her many variant comic book covers, as well as her stories with Marvel these days, Demon Days, Ultimate X-Men. But before she was a comic book artist, she spent many years painting and doing art for magazines, art galleries, and conventions. Today, we're going to learn a little bit more about her creative process and her comic book work. And since my Japanese is not very good, her husband and business manager, Mutsu, is gracious enough to help with translation. Ohayo gozaimasu. Hajimemashite.
おはようございます。ピーチももこです。よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
Arigato, arigato. Peach's paintings and comic book work, I've noticed, often have some specific elements. There's a lot of sexy girls. There's a lot of horror elements. And I was curious if you were able to share some of the influences for those elements.
ピーチのものはセクシーなものもあったり、ホラーもあったり、なんかその、影響とかなんかシェアできますかって、その、何の影響されてるか。
影響は、ざっくり言うと、日本のサブカルに結構影響されてる。
So Peach is, she's mostly just inspired by Japanese subculture, media or comics and movies, documentaries, anything in the subculture realm.
One thing I notice when I'm reading some of the most recent comic books is that your characters have very intricate clothing and outfits. And I was curious if Peach studied any fashion design or has any interest in drawing fashion.
最近のアルティメット読んでたりしてて、結構ファッションとか洋服、いろいろなんか結構こだわってるよねけど、ピッチはそういうファッションが勉強とかしてたんですか？
いや、してないです。でも、ファッションデザイナーになるのは夢だったけど、でも今回のコミックに関しては、かなりシンプルにしてる。自分が描きやすいように。
So no, Peach didn't study fashion, but she's always been into, looking at fashion, fashion shows, and just watching it as a fan. But for Ultimate X-Men, she basically really simplified her designs because she knew she had to do this monthly. So she didn't want to go too intricate in the designs.
That makes sense. Thank you. This is a question for both of you. I know you spent some time living here in America, in the Portland, Oregon area, which isn't far from where I live. Is there anything you folks miss about this area?
ポートランド住んで知ってて、なんかミスしてるのがあるって、ポートランド。
ポートランド？ポートランドのバイト仲間とかもミスするし、あとその自然かな。あと近所に住んでたダックスとかね、動物とかね、近所の人かな。
So when we used to live in Portland, Peach used to work at a French creperie restaurant as a dishwasher. So she misses her coworkers, the chef, the waiters, waitresses, the other dishwashers. Also, she misses her neighbors. Because we have Momo, our dachshund dog. So we usually walk around the neighborhood. So she misses seeing, the neighbors, the other dogs living in the neighbor. And the most part, I think, even we live in a place in Japan called Kumagaya. And it's has a lot of forest, nature. But she does miss the Portland nature, a little different aesthetics. So she misses that quite a bit.
Before Peach-san broke into comics, obviously you were making a lot of different paintings. You made a lot of comic book covers before you were doing the interior stories, but now you're telling whole stories. How much of a change did you have to make to your artwork for hitting monthly deadlines?
なんかもともとから絵を描いていろいろやってて、で今コミック描いて月間のするためにどのくらい、変わったか、描き方とか。
いやー、変わってないかな、あんまり。お話を作んなきゃいけない、プレッシャーはあるだけで、全然書く、ペースとかそういうのは、あんまり、基本的に変わったことはないかな。
So,
どう思う？よくわかんない、私は。
So mostly, for the most part, nothing really has changed with Peach's work schedule or work ethic, even with the monthly deadlines. The only thing that's a little bit more, I guess, high pressure for her is creating the stories. So the art side, she's quite comfortable with the monthly schedule. Obviously, we've done less shows. Cover a little bit less, but not that much less. Okay. But pretty much for when she makes the Ultimate X-Men stories or each issue, I would say just a preliminary rough draft story, it takes her about 10 days out of the 30 monthly schedule. So it's a quite big chunk of the time. And then and once that clears up, it starts to speed up a little bit for her. But for the most part, her work pace hasn't changed.
I have a follow-up question. We all have a mutual friend, Jim Maffood. And I was speaking with Jim about how much we both like Peach's art. We had a question that we came up with together. Does Peach have a specific method for making her painted comics work? Jim was wondering if she penciled all the pages and then did all the watercolors, and I was thinking it made more sense to do each page one at a time. We were just curious, what's the process?
So these I can answer without asking Peach. So sometimes I'll translate to Peach for her more current answers, and some stuff I can answer directly. Pretty much Jim is correct.
Okay.
Peach will go through the entire 20 pages of rough draft first. So she doesn't make a script. So first off, Peach doesn't make a script. So when we turn in our ideas to Marvel, Peach will write the entire 20-page or more with the art and the dialogue and everything together. So pretty much a complete finished rough pencil sketch to Marvel. So that's why it takes quite a long time, because it's a 20-page story, but at the end she'll be using maybe 50 to maybe 70 pages. Because some stuff, it just doesn't look right, or some stuff she decides to shave off some of the small stuff in the story or make it more denser. And once that gets approved, then Peach will go through and do the more finer watercolor paper pencil from 1 to 20 or more, and then ink 1 to 20 or more, and then watercolor 1 to 20 or more.
Okay.
For the watercolor, Peach doesn't do each page. She'll do maybe 4 pages at once. So if there's let's say armor, she has the red armor. So to keep the colors consistent, Peach just does four pages of the same red and goes through as much as possible. And then the small details she'll do 1 page at a time, but the main colors she goes in blocks, chunks of 4, I think, usually 4 pages.
Right now, does Peach have any favorite tools that she prefers? Any specific brushes or paints?
今、ピーチなんか気に入ってる道具ってある？好きなブラシとか使ってて。
道具？
うん。
これでも書いてあるやつもね。
So she uses this brush that she likes right now. なんで？
書きやすいから。水彩がすごい。
大丈夫。
She just thinks it's easy to use on watercolor.
最近これ買ったの好き。
And recently we bought this, or she bought this at a porcelain store.
綺麗。
So it's like, and then you can put this like a pencil on here. So just like a pencil holder and a pencil stand or a brush. So she uses this.
My wife and I both make art, and every time we visit Japan, we leave with a lot of art tools and stationery supplies. We especially like shopping at Sakaido in Shinjuku. But that's very
奥
pretty.
さんと二人で絵描くの好きだから、そうやってやっぱ絵の道具をいっぱい買ったりして、それ世界堂が気に入ってる。
でもこれ絵の道具屋さんで買ったんじゃないんだよ。なんていうの、食器屋さんで買って箸置きのところに置いてあった。
But this actually isn't for that porcelain that Peach likes. It wasn't bought at a art store. It was just at a regular cutlery. So that's for chopsticks.
Is it really? It looks nice. It's very pretty. You just explained to me that Peach will come up with 20 pages or so for a story at a time. But when it comes to planning that story, is she thinking about a character arc or fitting a plot within a certain number of pages? What happens with the planning of the writing?
ストーリー書くとき、どういう風な流れで書いてるのか、ストーリー中心、キャラクター重視に書いてるのか、もしくはストーリーの流れをいろいろ考えてからキャラクターを当てはめるのか。
キャラクター中心で、キャラクターがこの後どういう動きをするのかを考えて、セリフ考えてからお話に当てていく。
So mainly Peach does, she focuses on the characters first. So she talks to the characters and asks like Armor or May where they want to go, what they want to do. And then the characters kind of start to tell Peach what they want to do, and then the plot forms from there. If that makes sense.
It does.
But it's a very character-centered story making for Peach.
I will just pay a compliment. I really enjoy how Ultimate X-Men feels like it has very realistic and believable characters. It feels very grounded, and I really like that.
すごい気に入ってるってあれだと、なんかキャラクターたちがすごいリアルで、なんか本当にいるかのようななんか感じになる。
ありがとうございます。
どういたしまして。When it comes to forming the dialogue, how much of that is coming from Peach, and how much is Zach Davison introducing for the dialogue?
セリフ書くとき、どのくらいがピーチのセリフで、どのくらいがザックさんのセリフ、平均的に。
いや、全部私。だけど、要するに、言葉足らずだったところを、たまに補ったり、でも、その伝え方が私は好きじゃなかったら、ちゃんと断ってるし、セリフが全部必要って 思わない。だから私は絵で表現したりするし、だからそれをザックさんと私が理解できるまで何回もやり取りして、それで二人の折り合いをつけたりもするし、要するにたまに一つのセリフで一日使うこともあるし、すごく
全部終わってからだもんね。
終わってからだね。全部私の言葉全部はめてから、ザックさんがちょっとストーリー的にわからないところをこうした方がいいんじゃないって提案したりされるけど。
So each issue, Peach will write all the dialogues. So she'll complete the entire story with the dialogue and the script. Usually during the preliminary rough stage, for the entire each issue, and then she'll start, painting, and then we'll hand it over to Zach, and then Zach will look through Peach's dialogues, and create the script, translation and a script at the same time, because Peach's writings is going to be all Japanese when we hand it to the editors of Marvel. So the editors need to know what they're talking about. I help with some of the translation, but my translation isn't a professional translation level compared to Zach, especially in the writing translation with Zach. So Peach does all the dialogues, writings, but Zach will find some areas where it seems to be too quiet or needs to be more explained, especially for the non-Japanese readers because of the culture differences. And once that happens, once Zach gets to put his voice into the books, Peach and Zach will usually go through emails. Sometimes it'll be 1 or 2 emails, and then we'll find a solution. Sometimes one dialogue will take maybe a whole entire day, like 10, 12 emails back and forth, because Peach has her own idea and Zach has his own idea of how American or European readers like to read their books. And sometimes that really, I wouldn't say there's that much negotiation, because at the end of the day, Peach will just be like, no, this needs to be silent. And Zach, hopefully he's happy with all the outcomes, but sometimes he will, explain it more for us to make it more sense for us. But sometimes he will, accept Peach's opinion. But yeah, so it's basically that, like, it's all Peach, but Zach will do the supporting part to make it flow better, basically, because her, like, Demon Days, Zach and the editor taught Peach a lot about how comics should read, because during Demon Days, a lot of her story was very silent, very minimal. And then as she progressed from Demon Days to Demon Wars, she started to add more and more dialogue. And at Ultimate, because it's high school kids mainly, she also feels there should be conversations, small talks here and there. So she, especially in the Ultimate X-Men, I think she puts a lot more ideas and emphasis in the dialogue sections too.
そう、なんかカルチャーの違いとかが私はあんまりわからないときもザックさんが教えてくれたりするから、そういうところすごい助かってるよね。あとなんかそこでもやっぱり日本のなんだろうな、雰囲気を壊さないように、そこは私がわかりやすく説明するところと、別にわからなくてもいいけど私のあれ表現したいときとかっていうのなんかうまいことをやってるよね。
I think the culture difference is the major part that Zach really helps as well as where Peach sometimes really is strong with how she wants to tell the story. And sometimes the editors will explain that Zach's explanation is necessary to us, and they will, talk it out. And sometimes Peach will still be like for instance, the second button to the heart on issue 1. So when we first sent it out, Peach was like, the second button. Here's the second button. And that's it.
Next to the heart.
And Zach was like, yes. Zach first came up with a dialogue where it really explains that, oh, there's a boy that likes you. There's this, there's that. Explaining what the meaning is. But culturally in Japan, everyone knows what a second button is. So it's very awkward. The flow just doesn't feel right when there's that much explanation of what a second button is. So that conversation went back and forth, and what happened is it created the lexicon on the back page.
I love that.
So instead of explaining what this second button is in a conversation between two girls, we just second button and then lexicon for the people that wants to know what exactly is a second button, to make it more, still has that cultural explanation where Zach feels that that's necessary, but also doesn't crash the flow of what Peach wants to do. So it's a very Peach with collaboration with Zach's ideas or mind.
I think that American superhero comics tend to have a lot more dialogue than most manga. So the lexicon is a beautiful addition to the story, where we in America can learn something and go back and read the story again and understand it on another level. It's very nice.
アメコミは結構文字が多いから、でピーチはその裏、おまけページがすごくいいタッチだって、そうやって2度も3度も読み直せる。
Sequential pages, the interior pages. Very different set of skills are required for it compared to cover art and paintings. I know Peach didn't study comics before she made comics, so has she studied any particular artists to develop storytelling skills for interior artwork?
表紙書くのと中書くのと全然違うスキルで、もともと中書くこともなかったけど、書くようになってから、勉強したのか、誰かを見たのか。
いや、誰か見て勉強とかはないくて、そもそもデーモンデイズが初めてのことばっかだったから、やることが。だから書きながら編集の人に注意されたりとかいろいろしたで、そこで勉強した。あえてあんまその漫画のこととかコミック読んで勉強とかはしなかったかな。なんか、
Peach, so from start Demon Days, like you said, Peach never did interior, no, not never, but did rarely interior comics. So she basically from Demon Days, she had no clue what she was doing in that respect. So the editors will help her. They were teaching her like how not to do the tangent lines or not to do how the panels flow should read in a certain direction, not make the eyes wander around too much, not too much overlaps going on. Like they were teaching her while she was working on the Demon Days. So it was Demon Days was a very experimental and a very learning process for Peach. She still consider herself learning how to tell a story, how to panel the interiors quite a bit. But with the inspiration, Peach actually stays away from reading any comics or mangas to learn interior comics. Like she'll read, like let's say, Weapon X to get inspired by, because she's in the Ultimate X-Men, she wants to get inspired a little bit by the concepts. So she
Okay.
was learning that, but for how to write a sequential, Peach stayed away from learning other sequential processes.
てかね、何かをやる前に勉強しとくっていうことをしないようにしてる。自分がなくなっちゃうから。
So Peach, whenever she starts something, from X-Men or anything, Peach tries to stay away from learning about that project, because she wants to keep her voice, her own style. For this case, her own sequential. So she just kind of stays away from studying that specific. If it's a sequential, she'll stay away from studying about sequential. If it's about character designing, she'll stay away from learning how other people character designs. Just kind of stays away so she doesn't look like she's following another footstep.
That's very interesting. 面白い. Because Ultimate X-Men truly feels different and new. And that makes sense now. Although it still has the same themes that X-Men has had in terms of feeling like an outsider and dealing with school. So it's very impressive how it has blended the themes that are important with new pacing and new characters. Very impressive.
すごい面白いそのコンセプト。でも本当に本当新しく感じる。アルティメット読んでて。でもやっぱりX-Men のテーマ、部外者とか、のけもんとか、そういうものに対してすごく、元々の X-Men のテーマをすごく踏んでるから。
そう、書いた後に、ちゃんと X-Men に沿ってるかどうかの、自分が書きたいものを書いた後に、確認するために作品を読んだりもすることもあったりもしたりするね。で、あと、手こずったりするときは、資料見たりするけど、でも、そうね、そんな感じだね。
Yeah, so for Ultimate X-Men, like I said, Peach will basically, for Ultimate X-Men, she'll do the whole, that issue without any X-Men ideas at first, like what she wants to tell, what her concept is, and after she figures out what she wants to tell, then she'll kind of research a little bit of the X-Men, like the theme, like the outsider theme, and then see if it fits. If it doesn't, then she'll scrap that idea and start thinking again. But she tries not to think from start, what would X-Men do? She starts to think, what story does she like to tell? And then naturally, it should fit with X-Men themes.
It feels very new. Atarashi. How did Peach decide which characters she wanted to use in the book?
どのキャラクター使いたいって分かった？
何が？
キャラクターアルティメットで。
キャラ使いたい久子とか？
誰でも。
久子は久子であるじゃん。使いたい。で、その後のキャラクターは、なんだろうな、ストーリーに合うキャラクターが誰かとか、そういう探し方してるよね。誰が当てはまるのか、そういうキャラクターに合う子って誰かいないかなとか、そういう選び方はあったよね。
So it's not that complex, but for Hisako armor, so Peach chose her because after researching an X-Men character that's Japanese, because CB wanted, when he approached us for Ultimate X-Men, he wanted, what if the X-Men started in Japan? So we wanted to make sure the main character was a Japanese character, and we already did Mariko for Demon Days, so we wanted to find a different Japanese character, and Hisako was just a character that Peach, after researching, she really liked her concept, the armor and everything. But the rest of the characters, depending on how Peach tells the story throughout, the character just kind of naturally shows up, if that makes sense. So nothing's really planned too much. Like we'll show Mei, or we'll have Kanon, or we'll have Natsu. She doesn't really plan that. So it just kind of, as she writes the story, she feels that, there's a new girl in town. There's, kind of more. So it's, yeah, hard to say.
For my audience, armor, or Hisako, her powers are to have armor around her. And the character is very shy and introverted and closed off from the world. Was the character already conceived before you decided on the powers, or did the powers just suit the story?
久子ってアーマーじゃん。それが殻に閉じこもるとか、そういうシャイで、陰キャ。これはストーリー書いた後に、その久子の立ち位置がそれにハマったの。その久子の
キャラクター設定からまず始まった。
So for Hisako, or for basically the ultimate line, Peach saw Hisako and her powers. And then that's where the entire story, like Hisako being introverted, Hisako and, being shy, not good at telling her emotions to people, like all that came out after Peach decided on doing Hisako.
でもそれが私の物語の書き方なんだよね。キャラクターデザイン先にして、キャラクターの性格作ってから、じゃあこの子はどういう風に進んでいくんだろうっていうのが私の物語の作り方。
So that's mainly how Peach writes her stories too. She will make the character designs, give them attitudes, expressions, give them their characteristics. And then from there, they evolve into the stories more.
Okay.
And May Storm is kind of the perfect idea for that, because Marvel wanted, the new champions cover variants. And the editor asked Peach to do a sidekick for Storm, but they wanted a Japanese sidekick for Storm. And for Peach, she felt Storm's sidekick. Peach didn't really want to do a sidekick. She wanted to do a Japanese girl that's a huge fan of Storm, so not necessarily a sidekick. That's why she has similar aesthetics as Storm, because she's a fan. If it's a sidekick, she might have different looks. Sidekick doesn't. We don't think they should look aesthetically the same all the time. But if it's a fan, they want to have the same piercings. They want to have the same leather jacket or some kind of aesthetic. So Peach actually, for the cover, she didn't just make May Storm in the cover. Peach actually created a whole character design sheet of May Storm. And after that, she created the cover. So May Storm was, in Peach's mind, there was already a May Storm characteristic idea before the cover came out. So she likes to play that way.
Ah, how exciting. Has Marvel put any limits on what kind of a story you can tell? Or it feels like in Demon Days you could do anything you wanted, and I didn't know if there were any limits on what you could do in X-Men.
X-Men リミットってあったっけ？
リミットって何？
制限。マーベルさんから。自殺とかダメだけど。
いや、だって自殺シーン書いてるじゃん。
そうね。
いやー、リミット。でも、
ちょっとあったか。
なんかあったっけ？
ないか。他のアルティメットに使ってるキャラクターはダメなの、マジックとか。
そうだね。そのぐらいじゃない。なんか、そんな、なんか、結構自由。
そうだよね。
なんか、好きにやっちゃってみたいな感じだったよね。
So there wasn't that much limits for Peach. The only small limits was because it's a shared universe, unlike Demon Days. Jonathan Hickman or CB told us we can't do magic or we can't have so and so. That's because it's already in. Obviously, it has to be an X-Men character, so we can't choose, like Spider-Man. That's off limits from start. But yeah, so they kind of they just told her to just go. And Jonathan, we actually were more concerned. Like, can we do this? Can we do that? And Jonathan just kept telling us, just do what Peach wants to do. And because that's why Jonathan wanted Peach to be on the Ultimate X-Men. Because of, the low boundaries for her.
Talking about the craft, about making comics, in the Japanese manga industry, it's very common for many artists to use assistants. Would Peach ever want to use assistants, or is it important to control every aspect of the story herself?
So that I can answer. Peach, for the most part, will never want an assistant. アシスタント欲しいかいらないよね。She really likes doing everything as much as possible by herself. She won't even let me erase her pencil lines after she inks. She needs and she tells me she needs to be able to see the inks when she erases to see if there's any small details that she forgot to ink, or so the erasing process for her is also a process in the creating the artwork. So it's not just taking away something. So she won't let me do anything. Like, even on the prelim stage, I ask her, like, is there any ideas that you need help with, and she'll just tell me to walk, go away, because she needs to be in her own bubble when she does anything. But yeah, so no, Peach isn't really good at collaborating with people. She gets quite I mean, Peach is a hard person in that way.
Every artist is different. I'm curious, you two seem to have a great partnership, a division of skills. But what is a typical workday like for Peach? Does it start and end at a specific time?
No specific start or end time. Typical day for Peach is, she'll just wake up randomly, walk our dog, and Peach likes to clean around the studio, usually, like her space mainly, and then water most of the plants. And then once that part where kind of like her meditation almost finishes, then she will just see what the priority is. She needs to, if the cover needs to be done by tonight, she'll obviously do that prioritize that. Other than that, she just kind of does how she feels, and sleeps whenever she wants to. Because sometimes, like, artists drive. There isn't really a 9 to 5 artist drive. Like, if she's inspired or has an idea, she'll just keep going. I try to stay awake with her. Not that I do anything with her. Like, I just kind of stay awake, maybe answer emails, play video games. um, have more of the easy life than Peach. Um, but try to support her. But sometimes Peach is just so into the story or the cover that I fall asleep, and I wake up around 7 a.m. and Peach is still cooking. So it's there's no typical day for Peach.
Okay.
That's why a lot of people ask us whenever we do shows, do we have jet lag? And we both never have jet lag because our schedule is just all over the place. That life itself is almost jet lag for us.
I'm almost done. I know you're both very busy, but I am curious. Peach has had a lot of success as a painter, as a comic book artist, and a writer. What else would she like to accomplish as an artist? What other things would she like to do?
結構絵描きとしてとか、コミックアーティストとしてとか、表紙アーティストとしてとかで結構成功してはいるけど、他に何をなんかやりたいことってあるか？
そういうところに来たら島で暮らしてるなんかひたすらこうストーリーボード描きたい。
So right now, Peach's kind of dream is to live far, far away in a small island where there's no people, and then just keep painting her own stuff.
Okay.
Marvel stuff and her own stuff, but basically painting without any outside.
要するに目的を見つけた次の、なんかその目的。
So when we were in Luca, a couple people asked that last 2 weeks ago or last week, but and Peach, once Ultimate X-Men finishes, Peach is very, very worried, because she needs to find. She feels she wants to know what she's doing, basically, like how her future is. So with the Ultimate X-Men, she knows she has a work schedule till Ultimate X-Men ends. But once that ends, Peach is thinking her life is going to end. Like she might just die because she has no purpose in life. So she likes to have these purposes. So that's why one of her kind of I don't know, goal is kind of weird, but like she just wants to be in a small island and have a lot of stories to tell, to keep giving her like, you know, motivations and purposes of living. So she's worried, but I mean, at least I know that Marvel isn't going to let her go for a while.
No.
Forever. And when the time comes, and if Peach has ideas. She while she's doing these Ultimate X-Men and covers, she also has, once in a while she'll just paint stuff what she wants to paint. And sometimes it's just a pin-up piece, but she also has stories that she wants to tell. That's pure original. She's just kind of warming it up. So I know she will find a purpose if Marvel lets her go. But I'm pretty sure Marvel will keep her for a while.
I think that they would like to. I think that they would like to.
She won't die for a while.
That's very scary, yo.
A very big earthquake or something, but
well, I think that what Peach is doing as an artist is very important. It is helping give a fresh perspective and opening people's minds and attitudes. And I think that's very important. And it also brings people together in something that they can enjoy together. So thank you very, very much.
なんかすごいフレッシュなものを出して、いろんなものを新しいアイディアとコンセプトを持ってってくれてるから、そのありがとうって言ってるのね。
いやー、なんか、こちらこそ見てくれてありがとうございますって感じだよね。見てくれる人がいるから、私はかけてるから。
She's
こちら
more,
こそって感じ。
she's thankful for fans and readers of her books too, because she knows, she understands without them, she has no purpose, basically. So it's a mutual relationship with the fans and the creators.
Thank you very much both for your time this morning. I know it's very early for you, but it's very interesting, and I know a lot of people will find lessons in this. Thank you very much. Thank you. Arigato. Arigato gozaimasu.
ありがとう。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。Thank you.
じゃあね。
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I've got a few people I want to thank. Definitely huge thanks to both Peach and Yo for not just making the time, but being so open and sharing part of the craft with us. I think it's always tremendously valuable. I also want to thank my friend Jim Mafood, who helped broach the topic of an interview with them. And I really enjoyed getting to talk to Peach and Yo. They're just such kind people. A real privilege, a real privilege. Thank you very much, of course, for watching. Thank you to my patrons who make this show possible every week. Trying to keep on a regular schedule, you may have noticed. This is week 3 in a row that I've got an episode out on time, and I've got more coming. I always try to do a Christmas episode of some sort, as well as a top books of the year episode right before the new year. So I've got those 2 in the works, and trying to fit in one other video, which will come out next weekend. I've got so many ideas. It's just like, yeah, I'm just cranking away at the content, and I hope that makes the algorithm like me. But I'm really feeling the love from all of you. There have been so many wonderful comments. Strongly recommend Ultimate X-Men. I think it is just a fantastic book. It's the ideas of X-Men, but through a completely new filter. So it really is giving us something very new. It's so weird. It's American, but it's kind of like the storytelling reminds me of manga, even though Peach says that that's not what she studies. There's still that Japanese subculture vibe, and it's really cool. As you can probably see on the corner here, my cats are getting a little wound up, so I'm going to take off and feed them. Thanks so much, and I'll see you real soon. Keep reading comics.